FloridaMatters.com. When it comes to cancer, BayCare delivers life-saving expertise with heartfelt care, close to home. Experience exceptional cancer care from the region's largest academic health system. Learn more at baycare.org/cancer.
Food banks are being flooded with people needing help this holiday season. Metropolitan Ministry says it's serving 3 times as many people who normally rely on the non-profit to stave off hunger. I'm Matthew Petty, and coming up this hour on Florida Matters Live and Local, we'll ask why more people are turning to food banks and how you can help. Also, how was your Thanksgiving? Were you figuring out how to feed an army of friends and family and stop a civil war from breaking out over political divisions? You'll hear from Bill Woodson. He's leaning into tough conversations in this politically polarised time, and he wants to help you find common ground with people you may disagree with. If you've got a story to share or a question about navigating tricky holiday conversations, call us 813-755-6562 or email FloridaMatters@WUSF.org. And it's peak manatee watching season. We'll check in with an environmental reporter about how they're doing. All this and more on Florida Matters Live and Local after these headlines.
Live from NPR News in Washington, I'm Lakshmi Singh. Some members of Congress allege that at least one of the U.S. attacks on a boat in the Caribbean Sea may have been a war crime. In recent months, military forces have destroyed 21 vessels that the Trump administration says were trafficking drugs. At least 83 people have been killed. The U.S. government has not publicly released evidence that the boats were actually carrying drugs. Meanwhile, Venezuela alleges the U.S. intends to invade the country and seize its oil reserves. John Otis is covering the story from Colombia.
U.S. forces have destroyed more than 20 alleged drug boats, killing more than 80 people. But the Washington Post reported that following one of the first strikes back in September, there were initially 2 survivors clinging to the boat wreckage. According to the Post, Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth had given an order to kill everyone aboard alleged drug boats, and that this order led to a second strike in which those survivors were killed.
John Otis reporting Hegseth has called that report fake news. Luigi Mangione, the man accused of killing United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson, is appearing in court in New York today. NPR's Sarah Ventry reports this begins multiple days of hearings.
The 3 suppression hearings will determine whether certain pieces of evidence will be admissible during Mangione's New York State trial. The defense argues that the alleged contents of Mangione's backpack, including a journal, should be inadmissible because law enforcement did not have a search warrant at the time of his arrest. This is Mangione's first court appearance since September, and the hearings are expected to last throughout the week. His state charges include murder, criminal possession of a weapon, and criminal possession of a forged instrument. Mangione also faces federal charges, which, if convicted, could include a death sentence. That case is moving on a parallel track, though no trial date has been set yet in either case. Sarah Ventry, NPR News, New York.
The medical journal JAMA is publishing new guidelines from the World Health Organization about the use of GLP-1 therapy, such as Ozempic. Here's NPR's Gabriela Emanuel.
Worldwide, obesity affects over 1 billion people, and that's projected to rise to 2 billion by 2030. Francesca Ciletti is with WHO and co-authored the guidelines.
We have never had guidelines on the treatment of obesity before. And it's the first guideline on GLP-1 therapies.
The guidelines say it's critical that GLP-1s are part of a broader medical plan, including physical activity and management of chronic diseases linked to obesity. They also call for equitable access to GLP-1s that prioritizes those with the highest need, as well as more research on long-term use and safety. Gabriela Emanuel, NPR News.
It's NPR.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include Progressive Insurance with Snapshot, a personalized program that bases rates on safe driving habits, at Progressive.com. Not available in California or from all agents. This is NPR.
You're listening to WUSF 89.7. I'm Craig Kopp. A bill ready for full House consideration could affect your house if you live on or near former phosphate mines. WUSF's Douglas Soul explains.
People who own former phosphate mining land would get a new legal shield. Owners would not be automatically responsible for harm just because they own the land. They'd have to record a public notice with the county and have the state run a radiation survey. Bill sponsor Republican Representative Lawrence McClure says this is good news.
There's no mandate to go do surveys today. So we're going to have more data on 100,000 acres that everyone is hyperventilating about there being radioactive material than we have today, yet somehow this bill is trying to hurt people? Of course that doesn't square up.
House Democrats worry this weakens environmental accountability and doesn't do enough to make sure people know about former phosphate mining land, which can carry elevated radiation levels. The Senate does not yet have its own version. Douglas Soul, WUSF 89.7 News.
Flesh-eating bacteria commonly occurs in warm, salty waters during the summer. However, a new case of Vibrio vinificus was reported in Polk County in November. This is the 31st case reported this year. Norman Beatty is an associate professor of medicine at the University of Florida. He advises people to watch for any scrapes or cuts on their skin before going into the water.
Being aware of signs and symptoms of infection, early evidence suggests that, if you see a doctor right away and start on antibiotics, that the infection can be controlled.
This year's number of cases is well short of the more than 80 reported last year. However, last year's hurricanes contributed to that figure as people were more likely to be infected by standing water. You can see a county-by-county breakdown at WUSF.org. We are looking at a 10% chance of rain today with a high of 82. We're up to a 50% chance of rain tomorrow. I'm Craig Kopp, WUSF 89.7 News.
WUSF thanks Community Foundation Tampa Bay for a generous grant supporting our Edward R. Murrow Award for Overall Excellence in Large Market Radio. Your investment in public media helps us serve our community. Thank you for believing in WUSF.
Wake Up Call from WUSF delivers the latest local news to you first thing Monday through Friday. Our newsletter keeps you connected to community, news, culture, national NPR headlines, and more. Sign up for your wake-up call at WUSF.org.
This is Florida Matters live and local, broadcasting from the Doctors Lorraine Rubis and Neil Frankel studio in Tampa. I'm Matthew Petty. Well, the holidays can be a lot. Big get-togethers with family and friends, the table groaning with food, roads and airports crowded with travelers. Later this hour, we're going to talk about how these holidays can throw you together with people you may not agree with politically and how to navigate those tricky conversations. And if you got into it with your family over the stuffing and cranberry sauce last week and have a story to share, let us know. You can email FloridaMatters@WUSF.org and join the conversation in a bit. But for starters, let's talk about food, holiday food, or the lack of it. Metropolitan Ministries is a faith-based non-profit that helps homeless and low-income families in Hillsborough, Pinellas, Polk, and Pasco counties. And they've reported a nearly 300% increase in demand for food last month. Christine Long is the organization's Chief Programs Officer. Christine, thanks for joining us.
My pleasure.
So you serve Thanksgiving meals for local folks. What was that like this year?
Yeah, it was really beautiful, but very, very busy. We had so many people in need this year that our registration closed up really quickly, but we were able to help as many folks as possible. We actually helped 15,000 families over Thanksgiving with food, turkey, all the fixings for their holiday meals.
And is that different from what you would normally serve for your Thanksgiving meals?
We did increase the number that we would be able to serve. As we saw the need increasing, we reached out to the community. I added an additional 3,000 households so that we could serve as many as possible, and we're expanding that for the Christmas season to help as many people as possible.
I was looking at some of the stats in one of your press releases. 1,700 pounds of turkey, 90 gallons of gravy, 887 pounds of pies. That's a lot of food. Did you have any leftovers?
That is a lot of food. I don't think there are any. I think it got all eaten. But we, along with all the turkeys we passed out, we did hot meals. The cooking was all for all those hot meals. And we have 54 locations throughout Tampa Bay that we served turkey and dinners and lots of hot meals. And it was just a wonderful opportunity for people to come together, care about each other, show support for folks that are struggling.
Yeah, okay, so you got the hot meal component, but I imagine there's also kind of meals to take away for folks as well.
Yeah, there are holiday tents is where folks come and they shop for their own food and pick out what they like and be able to take that home and prepare it in their own kitchens with their own families. So that's a blessing for people who have homes and have ways to cook food. And then those that don't have those means or are alone and lonely, they came to our meal site partner locations.
So, Christine, there is, as we mentioned at the top of the show, there's a soaring demand for food that you've seen. I'm sure other food banks have seen this too. I mean, 300% increase last month is a lot. So how many people is that?
Yeah, that was really unexpected. I mean, we had started planning for increases. There was so many things going on at that time. But the first week in November is when we went from a couple of hundred people we would see to a couple of thousand, quadrupling the number of people coming to our food pantries and locations for food. So that was, that was quite a surprise. And we really had to dig deep, to get food for that many folks in that quick time period.
Yeah, so we talked to you about 2 months ago, and it was in the context of the federal shutdown and sort of thinking about what impact that could have, because there was, SNAP benefits to consider, what would happen with those. Obviously, federal employees, if they were going to be out of work and without paychecks for some time. But were you taken by surprise a little bit by the increase in demand?
Yeah, I really was. We talked about it. We started planning for it, a little bit ahead of time, knowing it might happen, really pulling forward our food supplies. But when it happened so rapidly, it really caused us to dig really deep into our food supplies. Getting food quickly was a challenge. At the time, I started asking people, bring us food, was the big request, because getting product was even a challenge with a quick turnaround time. So, it was a lot more people than I had expected to come at that time period. Luckily, some of that has eased slightly, but people are still struggling because of so many other conditions besides the SNAP benefit delays and the government shutdown challenges.
If you're just joining us on Florida Matters Live and Local, we're talking with Christine Long, Chief Program Officer at Metropolitan Ministries, about the surge in demand for their food banks and food pantries. Okay, so you're normally helping about, 1,000 families a month. You've gone up to 3,000 at least for the month of November. I mean, that does seem like a lot. Can you sustain that level of service?
Well, not without community's help. I mean, it really depends on everybody coming together to make that happen. And, we're really hopeful this holiday season the community is going to continue to support us. And I think tomorrow's a big day, Giving Tuesday. There's opportunities for folks to support us then. And the more people help, the more we're going to be able to help others. So that's we've been blessed and fortunate for the last 50 years for this community to support our work. And I feel confident that we're going to help as many families as possible with the support of the community.
Tell me about the kind of food that you're handing out too, because you talked about sort of digging into your reserves or digging deep. So are you having to look for more shelf-stable stuff versus proteins and vegetables that you might be handing out normally?
Yeah, we definitely had to dig into our canned food product, which we would buy and use all year long. We used a lot of that up. Also, prior to Thanksgiving, we pulled on all those things we ordered for Thanksgiving meals. So the vegetables and the fruits and, all of the things that we need for Thanksgiving dinners or turkey dinners or ham dinners, all of those we had to pull on that as well. So there's a lot of different things, just like you would have for your meal. Those are all the things that we need to help folks here at Christmas time in particular, as we're going to be ramping back up again, to make sure we have enough food to help them all.
What is the most popular thing that you serve out? What do you kind of typically run out of at one of these Thanksgiving meals or other holiday meals?
Oh my gosh. I would say some of the products that people don't think of but people need, like potatoes. I would say, instant potatoes and stuffing and those types of things. Those type of we always need those things.
The fixings.
The fixings. Yep.
Yeah. Well, some people like to make an entire meal out of sides.
That's true.
Right?
That's true.
I've been known to
that
do that
green
myself.
Bean casserole. I do like that.
Yeah, indeed. All right. So you mentioned you've got Giving Tuesday coming up. You are looking to the community for support, but do you have reserves at Metropolitan Ministries? Were you having to dip into some of those?
Well, we do. We did our board when we saw the need was increasing. We reached out to our board and freed up some of our reserves. We also went to the community. We got some great donors community support that also said, hey, we know this is a tough time. Here, take this, use this, just to make sure you have things covered. But we have to make that up through the year.
Mm-hmm.
You dip into the reserves, you need them to go back for another emergency. So we're going to continue to monitor, of course, all the donations that are coming in, help as much as we possibly can, and just make sure we have what we need to get us through the year successfully with lots of folks in need.
So is this the start of your kind of giving season, or the start of where you recoup some of that for the year?
Yeah, usually it is the holiday season where folks are in the giving mood and so generous and kind. And throughout the rest of the year, we're usually using up those reserves that we get over the holiday season. So this is definitely a critical time for us, and I think nonprofits in general, as it's the giving season. And we're hopeful we're going to be strong at the end of it.
Yeah, let me go back to those numbers for a moment. So 15,000 or so families helped out over the Thanksgiving holiday. You're looking to help probably that many plus a little more over the rest of the holidays. What does it actually mean for those families? Like what kind of help are they looking for? What are they getting?
Yeah, the Christmas season in particular is extremely difficult for families. And you also have kind of the pressure of toys for your kids and things for your kids. And we really want children to find hope and joy the holiday season, parents to find relief during these difficult financial times. And so when folks come to us at our holiday tents, they have the opportunity to, of course, get the food that we've been talking about, but also toys for their children, where each child gets a couple of toys, stocking stuffers. I know this year we're going to have PJs for kids. And so the parents will come and they'll shop for their children's toys, get to pick what they'd like and need, and take that home with them, wrap it up, and put it under the tree for Christmas.
Right. So these tents are like it's kind of like a spirit Halloween, but it's like a sort of pop-up situation where you can come and get some of your necessaries over the holidays.
That was a good example. I like that. But yes, we build the tent. It's only up for the holiday season, and it's kind of set up. I think of it more maybe like a super Walmart. It's huge.
Yeah.
And folks go, they shop for food, they shop for toys.
Do people know where they are? Like, are they always in the same place?
Well, we do have to move them around because they're pop-up. But on metromin.org, folks can see where the locations are, also how to register if they're still in need this holiday season. We still have a few opportunities left, and of course, opportunities for people to volunteer. We need lots of volunteers to make these holiday tents run.
Yeah.
And we're still looking for volunteers.
Are you seeing a lot of new faces at these holiday tents?
I guess that was one of the things that was probably the most surprising to me is the percentage of folks that were new this year. I really think that the housing market is taking quite a crunch on folks. Yeah. And they were struggling with that. So many new people coming that didn't typically come before.
Okay, so just as we close out here, Christine, people can help out by making monetary donations, volunteering, food donations. How else?
All of those things, toy donations, all of those ways. That's all. You can see that on our webpage, metromin.org. You just kind of click Holiday Central, and it'll give you all the information. Companies can do drives as well. That's also a nice way to help.
Yeah. Lots of opportunities there. Okay, Christine Long, Chief Program Officer at Metropolitan Ministries, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Well, coming up next, winter is prime time for seeing manatees. The gentle giants swim inshore and congregate in Florida's warmer waters. Sounds nice, but the last couple of years have been a bit tough on our manatees. We're going to get an update in just a moment on Florida Matters Live and Local. If you've seen some manatees and want to share your story too, give us a call, 813-755-6562. Stay with us. We'll be back soon.
Funding for WUSF comes from listeners like you, and also Seitenbacher, with a new web shop, healthy muesli, cold-pressed oils, and vegetable broth mix delivered to your door from right here in Tampa Bay. Details at Seitenbacher.com, Seitenbacher, Seitenbacher, AARP, helping to build a Tampa Bay where people of all ages can live safely, comfortably, and independently. Learn more at aarp.org/FLLivable. That's aarp.org/FLLivable.
I'm Scott Tong from Public Radio's midday news magazine Here and Now. We bring you all the news that happens between the morning headlines and the afternoon wrap-up, plus conversations with authors and artists, stories that affect you, maybe a story about you. So join us for NPR's midday news magazine Here and Now.
Join us this afternoon from 1 to 3 on WUSF 89.7.
Welcome back to Florida Matters, live and local. I'm Matthew Petty. Ever wonder what a manatee sounds like when it eats? Well, that is from a Save the Manatee Club video of a manatee chowing down on romaine lettuce at Homosassa Springs. It's about an hour north, just over an hour north, I should say, of Tampa. Manatees usually graze on seagrass, but pollution and other problems have put the squeeze on their food sources in recent years. And it's not the only challenge facing manatees. For more, here's Amy Green. She's an Orlando-based journalist with Inside Climate News, an online news site. Amy, thanks so much for being with us. Really appreciate it.
It's great to chat with you, Matt.
You can join the conversation too if you've got questions about manatees, or maybe you've been out spotting manatees lately and you want to weigh in. Give us a call, 813-755-6562. That's 813-755-6562. Okay, so Amy, Fish and Wildlife reported 587 manatee deaths so far this year. I mean, it sounds like a lot, but just give us some context. How does it compare to last year?
Well, they're a little higher than last year, but the number is not as high as where we were in 2021 and 2022 when we had this horrible manatee die-off in Florida. A record 2,000 manatees died those years in Florida. I just was checking the mortality numbers this morning. We're up to almost 600 manatee deaths in Florida through November 21st. Mm-hmm. So it's a little higher than last year. We had 565 last year, 555 in 2023. But again, not where we were when we had this die-off in 2021 and 2022.
Yeah, and I remember the reporting that you were doing and other environmental journalists in those years. I mean, it seemed like advocates and conservationists, scientists were in full-on crisis mode back then. So what was going on? Because we talked about the loss of seagrass as one of the factors, but what else is it that was killing manatees and is still continuing to threaten them right now?
That's right. Well, it was just a terrible situation in 2021 and 2022. Conservation groups said that the number of deaths in Florida those years represented 20% of the population in the state. And as you mentioned, the problem really was centered in Central Florida's Indian River Lagoon, where there's been ongoing water quality problems and seagrass losses that left the manatees starving. The Indian River Lagoon is crucial manatee habitat. There's a power plant there along the northern Indian River Lagoon where the cold-sensitive manatees like to spend the winter months. Mm-hmm. And so the federal and state agencies, the wildlife agencies, were left to take the unprecedented step of providing supplemental lettuce to emaciated manatees in the Indian River Lagoon just to help keep them nourished.
Yeah. Okay, so, and we heard some sound of a manatee enjoying some lettuce there. But there's other things that are going to threaten the manatees too, right? I mean, you do see, if you're out and about on the water in Florida, you'll see signs, no wake zone or be careful of manatees. So boat strike is another potential challenge for manatees.
That's right. Manatees are vulnerable to boat strikes. There's also been an uptick in the number of baby manatee deaths. And Pat Rose of Save the Manatee Club tells me that actually it's kind of a good thing because it means that females now are able to procreate better. Back in 2021 and 2022, the females just were too emaciated to get pregnant. But Pat Rose also is worried about the cold-sensitive manatees as power companies transition away from fossil fuels because of climate change. That would jeopardize the artificially warm waters around power plants like that one in the Indian River Lagoon. So Rose says that there has to be more done to restore the state's fragile springs where temperatures remain constant year-round. He also said something has to be done about the rampant growth and development that we are seeing in Florida and the nutrient pollution associated with that.
Yeah, a whole raft of challenges there. I think it's interesting that he's saying that essentially the power plants are kind of giving manatees a bit of a breather, right? I mean, it's not necessarily from an environmentalist point of view, it may not be a good thing to have a coal-fired power plant or some other fossil fuel-powered plant, but it does. There's a side benefit for those manatees. There's somewhere they can kind of hunker down and recover in the wintertime.
Absolutely. And that is a concern for the vulnerable manatees going into the future.
If you're just joining us on Florida Matters Live and Local, I'm talking with Amy Green about Florida manatees. Nearly 600 have died this year. If you've got a question about manatees, maybe you've been out and seen some manatees over the winter so far already, call and talk to us, 813-755-6562. You can also send us an email, FloridaMatters@WUSF.org. Okay, so as I said, we heard some manatee lettuce eating sounds earlier. It is a last resort, though, right? So are we seeing wildlife authorities having to do that this year as well, or that was just something you saw in 2021, 2022 when a lot of them were dying?
Well, there's a concern about making a habit out of that, right? Because, these are wild animals. You want manatees to be able to feed themselves. You don't want manatees to rely on humans to, for their food. And
you want to get them hooked on the romaine.
Right. And you don't want manatees, you don't want wild manatees to start to associate humans with food because there are other concerns there like boat strikes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. Let's just go over some of the places where you can actually see manatees. I mean, you mentioned the Indian River Lagoon, the power plant around the Canaveral National Seashore. Where else can you see them if you're in the mood to go spot some of these creatures?
If you haven't seen a manatee in their natural habitat, you really should do that. They're just, they're beloved creatures for a reason. They're just so gentle and so curious. They're really gentle giants. A great place to see them is Crystal River, north of Tampa. Another good place is Blue Spring here in Central Florida in Volusia County. There are lots of aquariums around the state that have manatees. SeaWorld is one of those places.
Yeah, there's also Tico's Manatee Viewing Center near Apollo Beach. I mean, speaking of power plants, that's another place in the Tampa Bay region where manatees will come because there's that sort of warm water runoff that they enjoy kind of hanging out with when the water temperatures in the ocean get a little cool. I mean, you mentioned the kind of the beloved nature and the lovable nature of manatees, but maybe not everybody's hooked on manatees. So how do you kind of explain the appeal and what is the significance of manatees? Why are they so important as part of our ecosystem here in Florida?
Well, and just to quickly follow up on our last point, it is possible to swim with manatees there in Crystal River, and there's some controversy with that, but it is an experience if you hadn't had an opportunity to do that. They're so curious and so friendly. They'll swim right up to you, but you do have to be careful because this is a vulnerable animal. As far as why manatees are important, well, they're an important barometer of our waterways in the state. One thing I hear a lot from scientists and advocates who I talk to about our waterways is that it can be a challenge to communicate to people what's happening in our waterways because what's happening is underwater. It's kind of like out of sight, out of mind. You can't really see what's happening under the water, and so people aren't really aware until we have something happen like this manatee die-off.
Amy Green, journalist with Inside Climate News with an update on the manatees. Thank you so much, Amy. Really appreciate that.
Great to chat with you. Thanks so much.
Well, up next, the holidays can be a bit stressful. In a moment, you're going to meet a Sarasota native whose goal is to get people talking even when they don't agree with one another. Stay tuned for that conversation on Florida Matters Live and Local.
WUSF depends on contributions from people like you and Nova Southeastern University. NSU's trailblazing innovations in a range of disciplines have earned the university a spot among the Carnegie Foundation's top-tier R1 research institutions. More at nova.edu. Caldwell Trust Company, an organization which has been navigating clients toward their financial goals since 1993, building wealth and preserving legacy, the way it's meant to be. Learn more at ctrust.com.
On the next Fresh Air, Oscar-winning costume designer Paul Tazwell. He watched The Wizard of Oz as a child, designed The Wiz in high school, and now he's brought Wicked to life. He talks about creating more than 1,000 looks to tell the story of Wicked for good. Join us.
Great conversation on Fresh Air tonight at 7 on WUSF.
Welcome back to Florida Matters, live and local. I'm Matthew Petty. The holidays bring people together, relatives particularly. Sometimes you'll be sitting down and sharing a meal with a family that you haven't talked to in a while. There's a chance you may not agree on topics we're warned to avoid: religion and politics.
But this Thanksgiving, Leslie Jones will come to your house and politely interject when the conversation becomes political.
I'm just thankful that Roe v. Wade was finally overturned.
That's the conversation you want to start right now at this table while everybody's happy during Thanksgiving. While we trying to be happy. You know what? Have some dry turkey.
Well, that's Leslie Jones in a Daily Show skit. It's funny, but there is a bit of truth in there too. If you decided to put politics to one side and focus on the side dishes at your Thanksgiving meal, you're not alone. According to a recent poll from YouGov, just 11% of Americans expected to talk politics this Thanksgiving. The same percentage said they expected there would be arguments about politics. So, how did you fare? If there was political talk, did it end in a food fight? Did you steer clear of politics because you know there are strong opinions across the table? Or do you dive right in? Are you concerned about the upcoming Christmas and Hanukkah gatherings? Call and tell us about it, 813-755-6562. That's 813-755-6562. You can also send us an email, FloridaMatters@WUSF.org. With us now is someone who sees opportunity for civil conversation when people from different viewpoints join to break bread. Bill Woodson is the chairman of the Carter Project. It's Conversations Across the Aisle. He's a Sarasota native. He was also the New College first Chief Diversity Officer. Bill, thank you so much for joining us. Really appreciate it.
Matthew, good to be with you. Thank you.
All right, so what exactly is Carter and how did you get the idea for it?
So Conversations Across the Aisle is basically a collective that brings together people. We've typically hosted between 40 and 60 folks at a time over a meal, intentionally to discuss the hot issues of the day. We had our first convening in October of 2023. We've had roughly a 10-person planning team, and we've basically crafted a framework for people to come together to receive some information about a topic of the day. We've talked about immigration, voter access and voting integrity. We've talked about education. Our most recent discussion was so popular, we're thinking about bringing it back. It was about the evolving relationship between church and state. But we start with some neutral or representing, all sides or both sides of an argument, information for everyone to kind of ground the conversation. And then we set people loose to talk at their tables. They have tables of 6 to 8 people. There's a facilitator at each table. And we let folks dig into some questions relating to that topic. And what I think is distinctive about our approach, because there's other organizations that do some similar types of convenings, but I think our model where we have that discussion following we break bread together. So we have a nice catered dinner, and people have a chance to get to know their neighbor as people before they roll up their sleeves and start talking about the issues.
Who's signing up? And I guess I kind of there's a subtext to that question. It's like people are coming to this sort of knowing that they're going to get into it over a conversation that may be a little tricky, right? Which is a little different from how you might typically approach your own family holiday. You may think, okay, I'm going to have a tricky conversation. I don't want to, though. These folks are saying, lay it on. Let's have that discussion.
That's right, Matthew. And actually, when we talk about who can come or who should be a part of this, it's an open invitation, but we do ask people to RSVP, and we do require that we kind of know who's coming so that we can set up a good balance at each table. But we say that to be a part of this CATA community, as we're referring to it, that the only criteria is that you come with curiosity about what people who think about the issues differently from yourself that you want to know more about where they're coming from. And so we do a lot from the way that we sort of promote each event to how we set the tone for the evening to really prepare people to have a candid conversation, but also to set the expectation that this conversation needs to be respectful and that people need to certainly challenge ideas that they don't agree with, but not to attack the other parties.
Right, so some ground rules from the get-go. If you're just joining us on Florida Matters Live and Local, we're talking with Bill Woodson from the Carter Project, Conversations Across the Aisle, about how to talk civilly with people even when you don't share their political views. I want to hear from you too. If you had some conversations over Thanksgiving that made you pause and think, maybe that could have gone a little differently, give us a call, 813-755-6562. A lot of folks are saying we just don't want to talk about politics at all. Maybe that's you. Give us a call, 813-755-6562. You can also send us an email, FloridaMatters@WUSF.org. Bill, let me ask, if I could, what conversations did you have at your Thanksgiving table? Like, did you sort of get heated at all, or was there some discussions with folks who maybe didn't see eye to eye? I'm wondering how that went.
That's a great question. And frankly, probably 4 or 5 years ago, myself and other family members were congregating at a cousin's house. And I certainly have a particular point of view. I have relatives who have a very opposing point of view. And the host for that Thanksgiving dinner actually called me up to say, by the way, please don't talk about politics. Don't bring anything up. Because we have some of the same, I face the same challenges. Mm-hmm. And I complied that day of that Thanksgiving meal, but it also made me kind of frustrated because I'm someone who is very curious about how other people think and how people who are thoughtful and well-informed might come to a different point of view. I'm really curious to hear, well, how did you get there? Why do you think what you think? And I realized that it's not really normal in our society anymore, that we're really sort of actively avoiding political discussions. And if we do talk politics, it's only with people that we agree with. And I don't think we can learn much when we only talk to people who think the same way that we think.
So you think it's better to kind of go in saying, okay, I know there's going to be some challenges, but it's better to just air it out, because if we keep it kind of locked down, we're not going to actually come to any kind of agreement.
That's right. And beyond that, I think it actually creates sort of a festering sore when you realize, when you have a point of view and you don't understand how these other people have these different points of view, and you start to wonder, well, are they good people? And what you can't find out, how could a reasonable person get to a different point of view? And what we found in our conversations is that we're not changing people's minds. People aren't changing political parties because they came to a CAUTA workshop. But what they are getting is a better understanding of how this, pleasant, nice person, but holding a different point of view, how they got there and why that point of view might be not unreasonable given the information that they have or given the priorities that they have. And I think that's a first step towards understanding how can we move forward to find solutions, real solutions to real problems that make sense for people on either side of a political ideology.
We're talking with Bill Woodson from the Carter Project, Conversations Across the Aisle, about how to talk civilly with people when you may not see eye to eye with them on politics or other issues. I want to hear about your conversations over the Thanksgiving table if you had some too. Give us a call, 813-755-6562. Send us an email, FloridaMatters@WUSF.org. I mean, to that point, Bill, we are apparently pretty divided. I was looking at some Pew Research polling, and according to a poll from the summer, most Americans, that's 8 in 10, say Democrats and Republicans can't even agree on basic facts. I mean, what's your take on that? Are we as divided as things would suggest? Is it just kind of the optics of the situation? Is it because people aren't able to kind of sit down and talk it out?
Well, a couple of points. One, the division is absolutely real. And it's deep. Two, you made reference to people not even agreeing on the facts. And that's very true. And frankly, I think our media ecosystem, where we kind of get news curated and delivered to us based on our political ideologies, whether you're watching cable news, whether you're getting your news from social media, we tend to get fed information that reinforces the positions that we already have. we tend not to even have access to information that, say, the other side of an argument is receiving. And so that is just a vicious cycle that continues to deepen the divide.
Mm-hmm.
I think that one of the things that is powerful about the model that we've created is that when it's not a talking head kind of giving you what you want to hear, or conversely, a talking head who's speaking in a very different direction, when you're actually able to talk to an individual, a peer, and compare notes and say, well, this is what I've heard about the issue. What have you heard? And then you can start, tends to be actually a much more credible source than a curated, news channel, news outlet that's speaking to a particular audience and really trying to lead us to a particular perspective.
Mm-hmm. So, Bill, I wonder if some folks have gone through one of these dinners that you've organized. Have they gotten back to you and said, well, this is what worked, this is what didn't? Like, what kind of feedback do you get from people who participate?
We've been really pleased. We actually spent 9 months designing how this evening would go before our very first workshop back in October of 23. And since then, we've had 7 workshops. And we have gotten overwhelmingly positive feedback. I mean, we can certainly continue to get better, but people are telling us that this was a more positive experience than they anticipated. Some people do come with a fair amount of trepidation, like, is this going to be safe? Is this going to be okay? People are telling us that they are deepening their appreciation for opposing points of view. They're getting to understand them better. And they're also, and this is, I think, really important because this is really why we exist, they're feeling that they are getting skills that can help them be more confident in navigating a challenging conversation outside of our workshop space. And that's really what we're all about. Yeah. I see CATA as an opportunity to strengthen our communities by helping us to be reintroduced to the opportunity to learn from people who think differently about ideas than we do. And if we don't have that kind of, we're a nation of immigrants. We're a nation, with a two-party system. We have always been a nation that was built around a diversity of ideas and opinions. But we need
conversations too, right? I mean, the founding fathers were probably the most verbose bunch of the lot of us.
Absolutely. There was a lot of spicy conversations before that Constitution came together. There's no question about it. But they stayed in the conversation. And we're trying to reestablish the value and the opportunity to create and stay in conversations, even when there's disagreement.
Speaking of spicy, I mean, does the kind of food you serve make any difference? Like, I'm wondering if there's sort of any food engineering you can do to get the conversation flowing. Like, does a buffet help? Does it help or hinder things to have some alcohol or restrict it potentially?
That's an interesting question. No, there's definitely no alcohol in the menu. It is always a varied menu. We have a wonderful partnership with an operation in Sarasota called the Academy at Glengarry. And they actually have both a convening space, a professional chef, and the ability to put together a wonderful catered buffet dinner. It's always a variety of items. We have gluten-free and vegan and vegetarian options.
I mean, those things in themselves can be a point of contention right at the holiday. Like, what people are eating, that can get political pretty quickly.
It's a pretty standard, American / Western European kind of a menu. We don't get too crazy on the food types, but we try to provide, kind of fan favorites in every space. So there's pasta, there's fish, there's chicken. But they are gifted cooks at the Academy, and I'll tell you the truth. The number one top-rated feedback that we've gotten from our events is about the quality of the food in the space. So having a good meal to set the stage for a tough conversation is, I think, a best practice.
Wow. So Americans may be divided on politics, but they're united on what they're putting on their plates.
I think so.
Yeah. When's the next of these events, Bill?
Well, we have a couple of things on the agenda for the first quarter of 26. We have a tentative date of February 12th. We're actually looking to expand both in our venues and our partnerships. We think that partnerships is a great way to get access to different points of view. So we're actually collaborating with in Sarasota with a few Lutheran churches and the Unitarian Church of Sarasota to host an event on the 12th of February. We have a website that is actually in the process of being refreshed. So in the next 48 hours, it's going to be a very different look with a lot more information. But they can go to CATA Project, CATA project.org, and we'll have information, a chance for people to raise their hand and say, I'd like to be a part of the next workshop, and then we'll reach out to them and get them plugged into
Bill,
our agenda.
We're going to have to leave it there, but thank you so much for the conversation. Really appreciate it. Bill Woodson, Chairman of Conversations Across the Aisle. Coming up next, if you're a newcomer to the Tampa Bay region or just looking for something fun to do, we've got a conversation for you. Stay tuned to Florida Matters Live and Local.
Support for the ZES podcast comes from WUSF members and Adelaide Interiors, with a new location now open on Kennedy Boulevard, east of Habana Avenue in Tampa, offering lunch and learn events and featuring the Wellness Kitchen, where design meets well-being. Learn more at adelaide.com. Selby Gardens presents Lights in Bloom on select nights. You can enjoy the downtown Sarasota campus as it's transformed with more than 2 million lights. December 6th through January 3rd. Tickets and information at selby.org.
I'm Scott Tong. In 1994, Christine Kewen got a letter saying her late grandfather Otto had been a Nazi. When she researched, she learned he'd spied for the Japanese at Pearl Harbor.
It was really difficult to think that you could be connected to someone who had had such a devastating impact on America.
Next time, Here and Now.
Join us this afternoon from 1 to 3 on WUSF 89.7.
On the Bay Blend podcast, we take you to places in the greater Tampa Bay region you might not know about, like when I saw a big tree house at Bonnet Springs Park in Lakeland.
Are you guys renting that out? Could I,
We do rent that out. If you want to have your birthday party there, you can absolutely.
Oh, no, I meant to live, because that's about as big as my apartment.
I'm Sky LeBron, and join me every weekday morning on the Bay Blend for your quick hit of the news, culture, and events. That's the Bay Blend, wherever you listen to your podcasts, or at WUSF.org.
Welcome back to Florida Matters Live and Local. I'm Matthew Petty. Whether it's driving around your neighborhood looking at Christmas lights or watching a holiday movie, families have a lot of holiday traditions. But what about when you want to get out of the house and do something different? Joining us to tell us more about the different winter and holiday events in the Tampa Bay region is Kristen Hare. She's Director of Craft and Local News with the Poynter Institute, and she's the author of 100 Things to Do in Tampa Bay Before You Die. Kristen, thank you so much for joining us.
Hey, it's nice to be back.
So you're kind of an expert about events in the Tampa Bay area. What do you do with your free time in December?
Well, I spend most of it with a volleyball with my 14-year-old, and I have a senior in high school who is college hunting. So
okay, so you have zero free time is what you're saying.
This is an unusual year for us. However, I have a bunch of stuff sort of slotted in, and I can tell you when we first moved to the Tampa Bay area in 2012, we have no family here. I realized that it was going to be really important to anchor ourselves here with some traditions. And the first thing that we did, and it remains my number one favorite thing to do, is we went to the Tampa Theater to see one of their holiday classic movies. Have you done this yet, Matthew?
I have not, but I'm interested to know what you saw and what you recommend.
Yeah, it is fantastic. They do it every year. This year they're playing Miracle on 34th Street, White Christmas, Elf, It's a Wonderful Life, After the Holidays, Love Actually. These are on weekends. And during the week, there's some other movies. I was really excited today when I was looking at the calendar to see they're playing Muppet Christmas Carol, Scrooged, and Die Hard. And, you're in this gorgeous 1920s movie palace. On the weekends, the organist comes up on the Wurlitzer, and you do a Christmas Carol sing-along, and it's a really affordable thing to do with a family. I have, a husband and 2 kids. My mom comes along when she visits, and so we're always looking for things to do that are not going to break the bank, and that will kind of create those core memories. So for us, the Tampa Theater is a really big one.
Yeah, okay. And there's probably not many theaters around which still have one of those organs that comes up out of the depths.
No, it's a really special place, and it is just a pure Tampa experience. Another pure Tampa experience is Tampa Riverwalk, and they have a holiday spectacular. And they also have the Winter Village at Curtis Hickson, and you can ice skate, you can get hot chocolate, you can shop a little and see the lights. And I love that because, again, there's no big price of admission. You're just there and getting to be outside, and it feels like Christmas. It's a little cold around the ice rink, so that's another really fun thing to do.
If you're just joining us on Florida Matters Live and Local, we're talking with Kristen Hare, author of 100 Things to Do in Tampa Bay Before You Die, and also Director of Craft and Local News with the Poynter Institute. I want to hear about your favorite holiday traditions in the Tampa region too. If you've got something to share, give us a call, 813-755-6562. Kristen, speaking of winter villages, like where else can you go to see this, and what would you expect at a winter village kind of setup?
Yeah, so I mean, it's the Florida version, right? So sometimes there's fake snow or bubbles. The one at Curtis Hickson has little igloos where you can go inside and get hot chocolate. I have spent, I'm working on 100 Things to Do in Florida Before You Die right now, and I've gotten to visit a lot of our little towns. And so you can go to Plant City, Lakeland, Winter Park, and see their light displays, see the, kind of the downtown area where they have trees, and there's always really great shopping. It's a great way to shop local. You get to kind of take a small trip out of town. I love Scout and Tag in Lakeland. It's one of my favorite places to shop for decor. And so, it makes you feel like you're on a trip while you're just maybe an hour or two from home.
Mm-hmm. So is this an update to the book? Is it something that goes online?
No, this is a brand new book, and it's based. So the three editions I've written on Tampa Bay have started in 2014. This is 100 Things to Do in Florida, so it's statewide. And last year I wrote a book about old Florida hotels, motels, and inns. And Matthew, that is one of the things I recommend is you go check out some of our gorgeous old hotels because they do not mess around with Christmas. So the Don Cesar, the Vinoy, the Floridian, all of those places really put on beautiful displays. Go sit at the bar, have a drink, meet somebody for friends or with friends or brunch. And that is just a really cool way to get festive.
So you've been doing a bit of road tripping as part of your research? Yeah.
A lot, yeah. And I have more coming up over the holiday break, and it'll come out in the fall of 2026.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so you mentioned shopping small and shopping local. Are there some other ways people can support those small businesses this holiday season?
Everybody has websites. Everybody has, Instagram accounts. And I think any way you can find to go discover those places and seek them out. Also, eating local, drinking local. St. Pete and Tampa both have pop-up holiday bars. I have never heard of this before. That doesn't mean they don't exist. They haven't existed in the past. But there are several in the area. There's one in St. Pete called Xmas Bar. It's on First Avenue North, and they serve holiday-themed drinks. And so any way you can just sort of be shopping and eating local and supporting our neighbors and their businesses, I think is always a good way to spend your holiday money.
You mentioned the Don Cesar and the Vinoy. Can you just remind listeners, maybe folks who haven't spent much time in this area yet, like where are they and what can you expect there?
Yeah, so the Vinoy is in St. Pete, sort of right near the pier. You can see it from there in the downtown area. And the Don Cesar is on Paso Roble Beach. Both are historic and really beautiful hotels that opened around in the 1920s and had, big booms and then busts, and the community has saved them. And they both, I know the Don at least had some significant damage from the hurricanes last year. It is open and thriving again, and really special places. Most of them you can do a day pass if you want to go to the pool. It's a little expensive. I recommend go check out their shops and go to the bar and get a drink and just kind of soak up how fancy and beautiful they are. The Vinoy also does a tour and a tea where you get to hear the history and then have a lovely tea afterward.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so a lot of folks probably have their Christmas tree up already. Actually, I can see one in the background of your Zoom shot there. But if people haven't gotten a tree and they want to go get one, are there some family-owned farms around the Tampa Bay region where people can get some Christmas trees?
I got to be honest, I'm a fake tree girl. I grew up in a real tree household and remember how much fun it was not to pick up those needles. And so I don't have a favorite Christmas tree farm here because we live in Florida and most of them are cut and shipped in. Mm-hmm. But I pass, little corner shops all of the time that have them. And I think you can find something pretty cute and decent at any of those spaces when you're looking.
Do you have a tradition of dressing the tree? Is that like a kind of a family thing, or is it just like whoever's got time to throw some tinsel and stuff on it?
It's me. It's mostly me. My teenagers offered to help this year, and they did a really nice job. But they I think I've become too much of a perfectionist. I want to make sure that everything feels balanced, and so no, it's mostly just me. But we do have a tradition where we get an ornament every place we go when we get to travel, and that's a special thing. It helps sort of make your Christmas tree into a time capsule. I think a lot of families do that.
Yeah, there's a bit of a story to tell about it for sure.
Yeah.
All right, so you're not just limited to winter or holiday themed events this time of year. I mean, are there some other things like maybe for sports fans? What can they look forward to?
So, I mean, I think going to see the lightning this time of year is always a really special thing. And my favorite thing when you go into Amalie is the Tesla coil that actually pushes out lightning. That is, I think, a pretty fantastic thing to do. And that whole area downtown in Tampa has become really special. And you can be down on the waterfront, and there are so many things that you can do, from renting an e-boat and going to see lights to stopping at any of the spaces, the restaurants and all of that. Something that maybe our Disney adults might like, and this is not a holiday thing, although you can make anything a holiday thing, right? It's just you go during the holidays. But if my girlfriends and I last year decided to go Disney resort bar hopping. And so you don't have to have Disney passes to this, and you do not have to have a room at these resorts. And we used the monorail, the ferries, and the Skyliner, which is like the gondola. And we went to see the decorations and to have a drink and eat something at the Grand Floridian, the Polynesian, and the Contemporary. They all do insane holiday decorations. They're gorgeous year round. And that was a really fun way to get to see places that I frankly had never been to. I've never stayed at any of those places. So it was a really cool way to get to see them and to get to, make advantage of all of Disney's really cool transportation options that are free.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good point, because, I mean, a theme park ticket, whether it's Disney or Universal or any others, can set you back quite a bit. So, yeah, you can sort of soak up some of the magic sort of by proxy a little bit and, as you say, enjoy some of what they've got on offer for free. I mean, what about other things that are kind of a little bit snow-themed? I know there's a place called Snowcat Ridge. There's the ice rinks that you mentioned before. I think anytime Floridians have the opportunity to bust out the puffer jackets and the cold weather gear, they try to do that, even if it drops below 70 degrees or so. So are there some other sort of wintry things that people can do in the Tampa Bay region for the next month or two?
Snowcat Ridge looks super fun. I have not been yet. My kids are begging to go. And, as a native Missourian, I'm all about any place where you can get some tubing in. That always looks like a really cool thing to do. For me, a really classic Florida winter thing to do, and this ties back to what you talked about earlier, is to go to the TECO, the power plant on Big Bend, and see the manatees. So once the temps dip around the 50s, and they have several times already, and the water gets cold, the manatees gather there, as you mentioned earlier, and that's just it's a very Florida winter thing to get to do. It feels really special.
Are there any holiday concerts going on that you're on your radar this year, Kristen?
Not that are on my radar, but that doesn't mean they don't exist. I'm focusing on the old movies that I'm really excited about. I do think every parent is going to have a holiday concert to go to. That takes up a lot of time. And it feels like in addition to the bars, the holiday pop-up bars, a lot of bars and breweries and restaurants are really paying attention to helping people feel festive. And so they have special nights. The Brew Bus in Tampa will take you on a tour of the breweries and then to see the lights. So that is a really cool way to celebrate. And you can do something as simple, Matthew, as going to the Chick-fil-A on Water Street in Tampa, which is famous for its decorations, a Chick-fil-A.
Yeah. Wow.
And it's a classic thing to do. It's another classic kind of Tampa Bay thing to do.
We're going to have to leave it there, but Kristen here, Director of Craft and Local News with Poynter Institute and author of 100 Things to Do in Tampa Bay Before You Die, thank you so much.
Thanks so much. Happy holidays.
Same to you. Well, that's our show for today. Tomorrow on Florida Matters Live and Local, that's our local holiday fundraising drive. We're asking you to support the show and everything you hear from the WUSF newsroom. We'll see you there. Florida Matters executive producer is Grayson Doctor. I'm Matthew Petty. Thanks for watching and listening.
Support for WUSF comes from listeners like you and from Tampa General Hospital, the region's only academic health system. Together with